In this episode, we close the course with a final objectives update, and the purpose is to protect you from studying from old assumptions. Security Plus SY0-801 has been built around a modernized direction that emphasizes current security work, including cloud, identity, automation, artificial intelligence, AI, operational security, risk, compliance, and governance. When a certification is moving from draft objectives to final objectives, small changes can matter. A term may be renamed, an example may move to a different objective, a topic may be removed, or a domain weight may shift. Those changes do not erase everything you learned, but they can affect how you review. The safest way to use this update is to treat the final objective list as the exam authority and treat earlier draft language as preparation that must be checked against the final release. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is part of our companion study series. The first book is a detailed study guide that explains the exam and helps you prepare for it with confidence. The second is a Kindle-only ebook with 1,000 flashcards you can use on your mobile device or Kindle for quick review. You can find both at CyberAuthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A final objectives update is different from a normal teaching lesson because it is not trying to introduce an entirely new body of knowledge. Its job is alignment. You already have the mental model from the full course. You understand that threats create pressure, vulnerabilities create openings, controls reduce risk, architecture organizes protection, operations produce evidence, and governance guides decisions. The update step asks whether the final exam outline kept those ideas in the same places and under the same names. If something was added, you need to know it. If something was removed, you should stop treating it as a high-priority exam topic, even if it remains useful professional knowledge. If something was renamed, you need to recognize the new wording so the exam does not surprise you with language that feels unfamiliar. The first thing to check in a finalized objective list is domain structure. Domains are the large containers that organize the exam. In this course, the major flow moved through general security concepts, threats and mitigations, architecture, operations, and security program management. If the final objectives keep the same major domain structure, then your review map remains stable. If a domain name changes, that does not automatically mean the whole domain changed. Sometimes the certifying body renames a domain to make the scope clearer or more modern. You should look past the title and compare the actual objectives underneath it. A new name may highlight a stronger emphasis, but the details are what tell you whether your study priorities must change. Domain changes matter because they affect how you organize memory and how much weight each area receives. The second thing to check is domain weight. Weight tells you how much of the exam is expected to come from each major area. A small shift in weight does not mean you abandon everything else, but it does tell you where review time should lean. If operations has the largest share, you should expect many questions that ask you to reason through monitoring, vulnerability management, identity, incident response, logging, configuration, and daily security decisions. If governance and risk have a significant share, you should expect policy, compliance, audit, third-party, and risk scenarios to matter. If architecture remains a major domain, cloud, segmentation, secure design, resilience, and data protection deserve steady attention. Use weight as a study compass, not as permission to ignore smaller domains. Even a lower-weighted domain can contain questions that decide your pass or fail outcome. The third thing to check is change terminology. Certification objectives often refine words between draft and final versions. A draft may use one phrase, while the final version may choose a more precise or more industry-recognized phrase. For example, a draft topic may describe identity controls in broad language, while the final objective may name identity and access management, IAM, provisioning, federation, privileged access, or access review more directly. A draft may describe automated tools generally, while the final version may separate automation, orchestration, scripting benefits, and operational considerations. When wording changes, do not panic. Ask whether the concept itself changed or whether only the label changed. The exam will use final wording, so your review notes should use that wording too. Vocabulary alignment helps you recognize a familiar idea when it appears under a refined name. The fourth thing to check is added topics. Added topics deserve special attention because earlier draft-based study may not have covered them deeply enough. In a modern Security Plus version, added topics are likely to reflect what the industry now expects entry-level security professionals to recognize. That may include AI-related security concerns, large language model, LLM, risks, automation, cloud identity, modern operational monitoring, updated social engineering methods, supply chain exposure, privacy obligations, or current governance language. Added does not always mean deeply technical. A new learner may only need to understand what the topic is, why it matters, what risk it creates, and which control or decision fits the scenario. Your goal is not to become an expert in every new item overnight. Your goal is to close gaps created by the difference between draft preparation and final exam language. The fifth thing to check is removed topics. Removed does not mean useless. It means the topic is no longer something you should treat as a direct exam priority for this version. That distinction matters because cybersecurity knowledge is broader than any certification outline. An older topic may still be valuable at work, but if it is removed from the final objectives, you should not spend limited exam review time treating it as equally important. Removed topics can also reduce anxiety. If you studied an early draft and saw a term that seemed obscure, then the final list removed it. You can shift attention back to confirmed objectives. Be careful, though. Sometimes a topic is not truly removed. It may have been folded into another objective or renamed under a broader category. Always look for the concept before deciding it disappeared completely. The sixth thing to check is moved topics. A moved topic can feel like a change, but it may simply appear under a better domain. For example, a concept that appears operational in one draft may move under governance if the final outline treats it as a management activity. A topic related to identity might appear under architecture in one place and operations in another, depending on whether the objective is asking about design or implementation. This is why relationships matter more than memorizing location alone. If cloud misconfiguration appears under operations, you still need your architecture knowledge. If vendor monitoring appears under governance, you still need your operational sense of evidence and monitoring. Moved topics tell you how the exam writer wants you to frame the idea. They do not always mean the underlying concept changed. The seventh thing to check is whether examples changed under an objective. Exam objectives often list broad goals followed by example terms. The broad goal tells you the skill, while the examples tell you the vocabulary and scenarios that may appear. If the final version adds new examples under social engineering, you should review those specific attack patterns. If it adds new examples under data protection, you should review those protection methods. If it removes an example but keeps the broader objective, you should still understand the category. For instance, if a list of monitoring tools changes, the larger skill may still be recognizing how security teams gather visibility, investigate events, and report findings. The examples guide your review, but they do not replace the larger security idea. Learn the examples, then connect them to the broader purpose. The eighth thing to check is performance-based readiness. A final objective list may not tell you exactly what a performance-based question, PBQ, will look like, but it tells you which scenarios are fair game. If the final objectives emphasize cloud configuration, identity, logs, incident response, firewall rules, data classification, or risk decisions, those areas can become scenario questions. Your update review should ask whether any final objective requires a more hands-on style of reasoning. You do not need to configure tools during this audio course, but you do need to make scenario decisions. Which control fits the goal? Which log entry matters? Which permission is too broad? Which incident response action comes first? Which vendor agreement fits the need? A final update should sharpen those scenario instincts around the confirmed final terms. The ninth thing to check is how the finalized objectives treat AI and automation. Security Plus 801 is pointed toward the security environment people are entering now, not the environment of several exam generations ago. AI may appear as a risk, a tool, a source of social engineering improvement, a data handling concern, or a governance challenge. Automation may appear as a way to improve speed, consistency, and response, while also creating risks around bad inputs, poor oversight, and excessive trust in automated action. If the final objectives name specific AI or automation terms, update your vocabulary. If they keep the language general, focus on the concept. AI and automation do not change the fundamentals. You still ask what asset is affected, what can go wrong, which control reduces risk, and how evidence shows the control is working. The 10th thing to check is whether governance language changed. Governance, risk, and compliance, GRC, topics can be worded in many ways, and small wording changes can affect how an exam question feels. Risk appetite, residual risk, business impact analysis, BIA, vendor due diligence, right to audit, privacy rights, legal holds, retention, policy, standards, procedures, and audits may appear under final wording that is more precise than the draft. You should update your notes so the final language becomes familiar. Governance questions often test judgment, not just definitions. They ask who owns a decision, which document applies, what evidence supports a claim, which risk treatment fits, or what obligation controls the process. If the final objectives adjusted this domain, review it carefully because these questions can feel less technical while still carrying real exam weight. The 11th thing to check is your personal gap list. After comparing the final objectives to the draft-based course, make a short list of topics that are new, renamed, moved, or weaker for you personally. Do not rewrite the whole course in your head. Focus on the difference. If the final list uses a term you do not recognize, learn that term and connect it to the closest concept you already know. If the final list adds a topic, study the basic definition, the risk, the control relationship, and one practical example. If the final list removes something, lower its exam priority. If the final list changes domain weight, adjust your review time. This is how you avoid wasting energy. The final update is not about starting over. It is about closing the distance between what you studied and what the final exam expects. The 12th thing to check is whether your memory map still works. It should. Even when exam objectives change, the foundation of security reasoning remains stable. Assets still need protection. Threats still create pressure. Vulnerabilities still create openings. Controls still reduce risk. Architecture still shapes how systems are protected. Operations still produce evidence. Incident response still manages uncertainty under pressure. Governance still guides decisions. Compliance still proves required behavior. Awareness still helps people make safer choices. If a final objective change makes you feel disoriented, place it on the map. Is the change about an attack, a weakness, a control, a design model, a monitoring signal, a response action, a risk decision, a vendor obligation, or an audit evidence requirement? Once you place it, the topic becomes easier to remember. The main idea to carry forward is that a final objectives update is not a reason to panic. It is a calibration step. The final CompTIA Security plus SY0-801 objectives are the authority for what you should prepare for, and any draft-based material should be checked against them. Look for changes in domain structure, domain weight, terminology, added topics, removed topics, moved topics, examples, and scenario emphasis. Pay special attention to modern areas such as cloud, identity, operations, AI, automation, data protection, third-party risk, compliance, and awareness. Keep your review practical. Ask what the term means, why it matters, what risk it connects to, what control fits, and how the organization would prove the control is working. You are not starting from zero. You are tightening your preparation so your knowledge matches the final exam target.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.